We're only a month away from one of the most highly anticipated debuts in sports history. The #1 pick to the San Antonio Spurs, 7'4", complete freak of nature, Victor Wembanyama. We've never seen a player like this, not even close. He's coming in as the tallest player in the league, with the skill and coordination of his NBA peers nearly 2 feet shorter. He's got the chance to dominate the league on both ends and completely alter the Spurs franchise overnight. Most commonly, he's deemed the best prospect since LeBron, but many have gone as far as to label him the best prospect of all time. Now, when did this conversation begin? For many, Victor Wembanyama came out of nowhere, but for people close to Wembanyama in his situation, this has been inevitable for over a decade. He's born on January 4, 2004 in Le Chesnay, France. His father, Felix, is a 6'6" Congolese track and field athlete who competed in the high jump, long jump, and triple jump. His mother, Elodie, is a 6'3" former basketball player and now coach. It really shouldn't be too shocking that these two extremely tall parents, one a track and field athlete, the other a basketball player, would go on to become parents of a top pick in the NBA draft. I really don't think you could ask for a better combo. Now, Wembanyama was always expected to be tall, but I don't think anyone quite expected just how tall. Growing up, it also wasn't just basketball that Wemby participated in. Early on, a lot of his focus was on football or soccer, and Wembanyama actually played mostly goalie. Just imagine if basketball never entered the picture and soccer remained the focus for Wemby. What would have come of a 7'4" player with an 8-foot wingspan and that level of coordination protecting the goal? Could we have seen Mbappe dominating for France on one end and Wemby on the other? Probably not, but it's at least fun to think about. Now, eventually basketball took over. I mean, I had the choice, and I still have the choice to play or not play basketball, but basketball's always been around. I can't avoid it in my family. His great-grandfather had played for Paris University in the 60s. His grandfather was reportedly a rugged 6'7" dunking center, and Wembanyama had grown up learning from his basketball coach mother. At 7 years old, he now started playing organized basketball with a local club in Le Chesnay. By this time, he's already towering over his peers. By the age of 10, there's just no stopping him. He's now approaching at 6 feet tall. It's then that a coach for the French professional team, Natir 92, is attending a youth game and is drawn into a figure on the bench with an impressively long frame. Assuming he was an assistant coach, he was surprised to learn that he was actually watching Wembanyama and wasted no time recruiting him for their youth program. At this point, things start to move very fast for Wemby, not just in life, but in size. He's starting to already envision his NBA future, and in preparation, as just a middle schooler, he begins teaching himself English, knowing that to play in the NBA, he would need a proficiency beyond the little he had learned in school. He watched videos from American accounts on Instagram, along with English language television shows. Come the time he's 13, still playing with Natir 92's youth program, Wembanyama is now standing in the ballpark of 6'10", something that by itself was already catching the eyes of scouts and professional teams across the globe. But it wasn't just the height. That comes along every once in a while. It was the skill he possessed, which you almost never see from someone at that height, especially someone that's in the middle of growing nearly 2 feet in the matter of just a couple years. His coach, Brian George, recalled the first time that the 13-year-old checked into the game after being bumped up to the U15 team. I put him in, and on the very first play, he ran corner to corner. He got the ball on the move, stopped on a dime, and in front of the three-point line, shot it. I was like, is he crazy? What the hell is he doing? And then the ball went in a big swish. Everybody in the gym was smiling. You can tell people were thinking, who is that guy? Who is that monster? But in a good way. It was legendary. At the time, Victor was far from dominating. He was prone to mistakes, turnovers, bad plays, and yet one play was enough to make him a legend. News starts to spread like wildfire. Scouts are already calculating what year he's eligible for the draft. European teams are doing everything they can to get Wembanyama to their organization. And it's at this time we get our first footage of Wembanyama on the court posted to YouTube from Draft Express. We see a nearly 7'13" 13-year-old knocking down threes with a buttery smooth release. That season, he would end up winning the league's U15 championship, a moment that gave Wembanyama a taste of victory, which would instill a lifelong thirst for it. At 14, he starts to become more comfortable, more coordinated in his staggering frame. His coach said, "It was when he was 14 that I said to myself, this one, he's got to go to the NBA." In that season, he was also loaned to FC Barcelona for the Mini Copa del Rey, a tournament in Spain featuring some of the top young talent in the world. Wembanyama and Barcelona would end up taking third place, but despite them being one of the top professional programs outside of the NBA, Wemby declined an offer to continue his career with them, citing the coaches were not willing to challenge him. He returns at 15 years old to Nanterre, now a part of their senior team. He leaves home and moves into their dormitories, where due to his height, they would have a bed specifically made for him and brought in from northern France. Wembanyama is already 7'2". By now, he already has this unwavering focus to the sport of basketball. Even some feared it might have been too much. His coach said that if one day he said to himself that he wanted to stop playing basketball because he was tired of it, if he said, "I want to go out, have fun," what would he have done? Today it's interesting because his story is beautiful, but when he was 15, sometimes it was too much. Scouts have been hearing rumblings about the 15-year-old prodigy for years now, but in the summer of 2019, they were finally going to get to see him with their own two eyes and in a familiar setting. This 7'2" big would represent France during the U16 European Championships. During the tournament, Wembanyama wasn't yet dominating offensively, averaging just 9 points, but he was already showing off that never-before-seen skill set on the perimeter. He paired that with 10 rebounds a game and a ridiculous 5.3 blocks, a number no one else in the tournament even came close to, and he did it while only committing 8 personal fouls in France's 7-game tournament run before falling just short in the final to Spain. At this point, there's no question. Victor Wembanyama is a future top pick in the draft. Fans across the globe, including myself, are finally learning about the player that could change the NBA forever. With Nanterre's senior team in the 2020 season, 15-year-old Wemby didn't get much time on the court. He received just a few minutes across a couple games. Most of his actual action came from representing their U18 team in various tournaments. But at 16 years old, that all changed. He was now taking the court for their pro team playing in the top league in France. No one knew what to expect, but he dominated. He averaged 15, 10, and 4 blocks, shooting 44% from the field, and most exciting, 36% from 3. The European game doesn't typically produce the same box scores we're used to in the NBA. These numbers are ridiculous for anyone, let alone someone that's just 16 years old. Scouts had seen enough. The height was exciting, the skill and coordination was crazy, but now they were seeing him not just hold up against professional grown men, but dominate. There was absolutely no questions anymore. When it came time, he was going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. This set the stage for an exciting summer. Wembanyama, now 17 years old, was once again going to represent France. But this time, it wasn't just against the rest of Europe. It was the world. The 2021 U19 FIBA World Cup. During the tournament, France dominated. Wembanyama is averaging 14-7, but the biggest difference maker being his FIBA record 5.7 blocks a game. His rim protection was quite literally striking fear into the rest of the world. France cruised through most of the tournament, making it all the way to the final, where they would be matching up with the United States. The matchup is hyped up as the number 1 recruit in the country, Chet Holmgren, versus the number 1 prospect in the world, Victor Wembanyama. The two are both bringing a unique size and skill combination, but in the first half, it's all Wembanyama. He was clearly the best player on the floor. But in the second half, on the back of the 300-pound beast Kenneth Lofton, the US came crawling back, eventually squeaking out the victory and taking down France 83-81. But despite the loss, Wemby had made it known to the rest of the world, he's coming. After the tournament, he decides to switch professional teams and joins Tony Parker-owned Asvel. He turned 18 during the season and his dominance continued. He averaged 18 points, 10 rebounds, and over 3 blocks. Undoubtedly impressive, the conclusion of the season came with no negative impact to his insane draft stock. But now, just a year out from the NBA draft, Wembanyama wanted more opportunity with the ball in his hands, more opportunity to show the world what he's capable of. So he decided to switch teams once again, this time joining the Metropolitans in Paris, where that opportunity was going to be provided to him. Social media buzz is picking up. He's averaging 24, 12, and 3. But it was still pretty rare to hear people that weren't paying close attention to the upcoming draft talking about Wembanyama. That all changed in one night. His team would be participating in a showcase in Las Vegas against the G League Ignite, a team loaded with top prospects, but most notably, fellow projected top pick Scoot Henderson. In his very first game in the US, he goes out there and drops 37 points, blocks 5 shots, and hits 7 threes. But not just any threes. The 7'4" 18-year-old is taking the ball up, taking players off the dribble, and hitting step-back jumpers way behind the line. Then in the following day, he puts together a just as impressive 36-point performance once again against Scoot Henderson. In a matter of days, he becomes a household name. He's on pace to become one of the most hyped-up prospects of all time. Practically every big-name NBA player is being asked about him in interviews after games. Everyone's now paying attention, and Wemby wouldn't disappoint. He continues his dominance in France. He's filling up the highlight reel with ridiculous plays such as this one, where he takes a 3, misses it, but manages to grab it off the rim for a putback dunk. He then turns 19 after the new year. There's really no reason for him to be taking the court. In fact, reports came out that NBA executives were pleading with his agent for him not to. But that wasn't an option for Wembanyama. He had his eyes set on a French League title. Coming into this season, expectations really weren't too high for this team. His move was looked at as one for personal benefit and opportunity more than anything. But that sentiment changed quickly. He had led them to the 2nd seed, then out of the first round, out of the semifinals, and into the finals where they would fall short to the 1-seeded Monaco. These games are all happening just weeks away from the NBA draft, a draft that saw the San Antonio Spurs win the lottery and land the number 1 overall pick, a team that conveniently he had grown up a fan of due to fellow French player Tony Parker. Going into draft night, there was no question who the number 1 pick was. But following the draft, having just wrapped up his season in France, there were some questions surrounding whether or not he would be playing in the Summer League. But luckily for everyone, he would be taking the court in Las Vegas, and with millions around the world glued to the TV to see the Summer League debut of one of the greatest prospects of all time, he would go out there and, well, disappoint. He put up 9 points, shooting just 2 for 13 from the field. But that wasn't the end of his Summer League run. In his second performance, we saw that generational talent everyone expected him to be, with historic levels of pressure only intensifying after those first game struggles. He was unfazed. He dropped 27 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 blocks, shooting 9 for 14 from the field. This reinvigorated the severely depleted excitement, and now we're only weeks away from the beginning of what projects to be a remarkable career. A career that has seemed inevitable since Wembanyama was old enough to hold a basketball.